leaders are going to be coming. Sometimes it could be alphabetical, sometimes it could just be geographic. Which are the delegations that are staying farthest away, they have to be welcomed in first, and then the nearest ones come in last.
So of course, Jagat, there has been normally this alphabetical order that has been followed, but we know that this time around, apart from the 19 leader plus EU countries, there are 9 invitees also. Then there are multiple multilateral institutions. Their heads will also be joining them for the first session, especially when all of them would like to speak on the issue of global concerns, climate change, financing, energy transition, technological, sharing. And India has been pushing for 2-3 agendas that has been core to India's presidency. That has been one of them has been startup, other has been disaster resilience, and also women-centric development, like equitable social justice and space for women in all sort of economic and social dimension. This is where India has been trying to push, and this is what India has taken as a presidency for. Now we could see several dignitaries who are arriving in the Bharat Mandapam, where Prime Minister Modi has already arrived. He's welcoming all of these leaders, and after the first session, Prime Minister is also going to have some bilateral that is scheduled for the evening. Prime Minister is going to have a bilateral with UK President Rishi Sunak and also with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in the afternoon session. In the evening around 5 p.m.
All right, just give me a moment, Abhishek. You can see the Prime Minister there standing in front of what is a recreation of the Sun Temple at Konark, the giant wheel there. He's, of course, shaking hands with each of these visiting dignitaries, standing in front of the replica of the Sun Temple, and you've got the G20 logo and the slogan of One Earth, One Family, One Future etched on it. So it's symbolic as well that the Prime Minister has chosen to stand in front of a replica of the Sun Temple in Konark in Odisha, and it has that wheel, the Wheel of Fortune, which is the... All right, the IMF director has just walked in. That is Christina Georgilina. She, of course, won a lot of fans for that little dance that she did, the Sambalpuri dance to the Sambalpuri beats that she did when she arrived at the airport. So Christina Georgilina just walking up down the red carpet, and she will be welcomed by the Prime Minister at the end of that red carpet. The Konark Wheel, of course, is where everyone is being greeted, all these visiting heads of government and heads of state. Of course, it is a 13th century monument. It was unveiled in the reign of King Narasimha Deva. The wheel, in fact, has 24 spokes. It is also adapted into the national flag, which has the Ashok Chakra, again with 24 spokes to that wheel. It is, of course, symbolic of India's ancient wisdom, its advanced civilization, also the architectural marvel that the Konark wheel symbolizes. It symbolizes time, Kala Chakra, progress, as well as continuous change. There the Prime Minister greeting the IMF director. All right, we're also getting more and more. All right, UN General Secretary General Antonio Guterres has also just walked in. So these are people who are representing the international institutions, the UN, the IMF. There'll, of course, be the European Union represented by Ursula von der Leyen. As you can see, Antonio Guterres now walking in, and he will be greeted by the Prime Minister, like I said, at the Sun Temple insignia, the Konark Wheel of Fortune insignia that is there at the gates of the Bharat Mandapam, the main exhibition hall. Of course, the UN, this is a critical time for multilateral institutions like the UN and the IMF, etc., particularly for the UN, because multilateralism, as we know it itself, is under stress. It's under a great deal of pressure because of the Russia-Ukraine war, because of climate financing, because of debt restructuring, all of these issues. All right, Ajay Banga, World Bank president, is also arriving. You can see the Prime Minister greeting now Antonio Guterres at the Wheel of Fortune, at the Konark Sun Temple wheel that's been put there as an insignia. Ajay Banga, of course, of Indian origin, used to be the CEO of MasterCard for a number of years, and now was elected as the World Bank president a few months ago. Of course, he has spoken about this particular trip as a homecoming for him, to be representing the biggest bank in the world, the World Bank, and the Prime Minister there greeting him, a very warm handshake, a tap on his arms as well. and the Prime Minister greeting Ajay Banga. So the institutional heads are the ones who are coming in now, the IMF chief, the World Bank chief, the UN Secretary General, and slowly we will then progress into, I think there are about 6 institutions who are part of the G20. There are also 6 invitee nations, including the likes of Bangladesh, who will be represented by the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. And then, of course, there are the 19 countries and the European Union who are part of the G20. So all of them. The WHO chief, Dr. Tedros, a good friend of the Prime Minister's, has also just walked in. Remember, he was there in Ahmedabad just a few weeks ago. There was a high-level conference that was happening there. The Prime Minister had also tweeted about it. And Dr. Tedros has been a big fan of India and how India managed to sort of, he is also seen with a walking stick. We're given to understand that he's had a bit of a personal injury. He will be making that long walk on the red carpet all the way inside the exhibition hall where he will be received by the Prime Minister. Like I said, Dr. Tedros had a good time a few weeks back in Ahmedabad at this World Health Conference, and the Prime Minister had tweeted about it as well. Remember, he had extended his entire support and the support of the WHO during the course of the pandemic because the eyes of the world were really on India. Will India be able to vaccinate its population, a population of 1.3 billion? Will they be able to do it twice over? People were talking about, corpses and corpses that could potentially, come to India if at all India is not able to manage the pandemic. And India did a fine job of handling the fallout of the pandemic, and Dr. Tedros and the entire WHO team have been instrumental, and they've been giving their entire support to Prime Minister Modi and to the Indian delegations and the Indian Ministry of Health as well in their efforts to try and contain the pandemic. So he's been a long-standing friend of India's. If I can go across to some of my colleagues as well, if Anand is there, all of these institutional heads who are being received first, and then we will, of course, welcome the 19 heads of government. I think the Prime Minister there inquiring about Dr. Tedros' injury. So Anand, just walk us through these pictures. The fact that the Sun Temple, the Konark Wheel of Fortune, is the backdrop where the Prime Minister is greeting these leaders. What's the significance of that?
Well, Konark, Wheel of Fortune, Sun Temple, and so by default we are also saying that we are new age, we are at the table, we are developed. So even as we become or we are galloping towards becoming the 3rd largest economy in the world, we are still coming back and saying we have not forgotten our civilizational ethos and our roots, and we are using all those symbols and all those insignia of our heritage, which also stands for prosperity, for inclusion, for growth, and for perhaps the pursuit of knowledge. So it is the Konark temple that the wheel coming in from the Konark wheel from Odisha, the 13th century under the reign of King Narasimha I. This was built. It's a wheel with 24 spokes. It's also adapted into India's national flag and embodies India's ancient wisdom, advanced civilization, and architectural excellence. The greatest of all and we also have the head of WTO. So all the heads, like you said, the institutional heads will walk in. You spoke to one of them, the head of the chief of the World Economic Forum, Zaka, and they are all effusive in praise for Bharat's efforts, what Bharat has been able to achieve. We sometimes underestimate our own achievements and the scale of our achievement. We have used our wisdom, we have used our innate ability to embrace technology and also to understand what is good for us. This JAM portal is an example. The world is astonished. Janadhan, Aadhaar and mobile, connecting all of this to create a unified payment interface and to create a digital economy or a digital infrastructure that is recording billions of transactions and crores of money that are being transacted digitally is something which has wowed nations. There are so many nations who want to imitate the unified payment interface. There is also another lesson that if we as a nation that was being seen as an emerging economy, as an emerging nation with 20% of the world's population and only 4% of its landmass, if we can achieve this, then look at what it does or how much of hope that it gives to the other emerging nations in Southeast Asia, in the Asia-Oceania, and of course Africa nations and South America. I think that's the statement, and there is a reason why Prime Minister has chosen certain landmarks to represent as people walk in. Each of them has a symbolic message: ancient wisdom, collective wisdom, advanced civilization. So we were ancient, we were cultural, but we are advanced. We are high-tech even now, but we still are steeped in tradition and our scriptures, and we are very proud of it. So we are wearing our civilizational roots, our depth, our wealth, civilizational heritage. We are wearing it proudly. We are not being sheepish about it. We are shedding that mentality of being, having an inferiority complex or being fed that inferiority complex through our colonizers. We are trying to shed that mindset, and we are coming back to say, embrace what is ours, what has always been here, that wisdom, that knowledge, and we are sharing it with the world with the spirit of sharing, spirit of collaboration, and more importantly, the spirit of consensus. Zaka.
Azali Assoumani is the president of the African Union. He has just arrived. Now you can see the president of Oman arriving. But I think the African Union is important to stress because India has proposed that the African Union be a permanent member of the G20, and I believe that will be one of the resolutions that will be adopted today, and that will be significant because it is really, in that sense, the voice of the global South. As we see, one of the invitee nations, Oman, the head of the Oman royal family, the leader of Oman, the prime minister there, he is just walking in. We're also seeing the leader of Bangladesh, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, also walking into the venue. And this is important because these are invitee nations. India has invited a bunch of these nations, about 9 of them, I'm given to understand, from Oman to Bangladesh to Mauritius, Netherlands. They will all be part of the G20. Some of them eventually may even be recommended to be made permanent members of the G20. We'll wait and see. But we are seeing the leader of Oman just walk in, Syed Asad bin Tariq. He's the Deputy Prime Minister, and we're also seeing now pictures right after him of Sheikh Hasina, the Bangladesh Prime Minister. Remember, Bangladesh is important not just for India and its near neighborhood policy, but also clearly for the rest of the world. The US has a great interest in Bangladesh because of China's One Belt, One Road initiative. Sheikh Hasina there in a pink sari walking up that red carpet where she will be greeted by the Prime Minister in front of the insignia of the Wheel of Fortune, the Kala Chakra of the Sun Temple in Konark. Of course, remember, Sheikh Hasina had her bilateral with the Prime Minister just yesterday, and if Abhishek is there, just give us a sense, Abhishek, of these invitee nations from Bangladesh to Oman. All right. Give us a sense of, who are the invitee nations and what is the thought process behind these invitee nations as we see more and more leaders now being welcomed by the Prime Minister. The President of Egypt, Al-Sisi, has also just walked in. Again, Egypt is an invitee nation by India for the Delhi G20 summit. Abhishek. All right, General Al-Sisi, of course, is the head of Egypt. He's the president of Egypt. He was the Republic Day chief guest just a few months ago. And in fact, the Prime Minister had reciprocated that with a visit to Egypt just recently in June. The Mauritius Prime Minister is also in, Praveen Jagnnath. Again, Mauritius is hugely critical for India from its Indian Ocean strategy in a bid to try and counter China's maritime Silk Road. And Praveen Jagnnath also had his bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister yesterday at 7 LKM. So all of these countries, whether they are from the African continent, whether they are from the Indian Ocean region, these are invitee countries. Bangladesh, Egypt, Mauritius have all been invited by the Prime Minister for this special summit of the G20. Some of them could potentially become full-fledged members of the G20. But right now, these are invitee nations who have been invited by India to take part in the G20 that Delhi is hosting. All right, Siddhant is also there. Siddhant, if I can ask you, what is the thought process in some of these invitee nations, from near neighborhood to Indian Ocean region countries to African Union countries? What is the thought process behind why India has chosen to invite these countries?
Well, that's right, Zaka. In fact, whenever there is some multilateral event and if we talk about India's perspective, then India has put forth its interest and perhaps also given importance to the long-standing friendship to the relations that India has with these countries, and this is perhaps the reason that some of these countries have been made the special invitees, and they have been invited Zaka, which includes countries like Netherlands, Oman, UAE. They all have been old ally and partners of India, Zaka, and time and again, whenever India required them or perhaps need them, they were there, they stood by India. And also there's a mutual respect and a deep sense of understanding and perhaps cooperation in various sectors, which made India to take this decision of making them special invitees, a special guest to attend the G20 summit. So Zaka, it has to do with interest that host country has. It could be strategic or economic interest, perhaps could be trade also. But then also at times a country like India